Welcome to another episode 2 to be precise, of Full Tilt Esports. How are you guys doing? How are you doing, Mike? Are you tilted?
As always, I'm always tilted. Are you tilted, Adew?
I'm a freaking tilted. I'm always tilted. As usual, like like in one of our first episodes, I spilled water on my keyboard. This time I spilled water on my shirt. I don't know what's going on with me. I think I need like a pacifier or what are they called? Like the bottles,
the
when, like,
bibs
the baby
or
bottles,
whatever.
the baby bottles.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like, I
yeah,
need
yeah,
like
yeah.
one of those little nibs so I can just like drink that way because like I'm just spilling water over myself. I don't know what's going
Come
on.
on,
I'm a mess. I'm a
man.
mess. I'm a mess. I know. Well,
It's all good though.
so I've been doing pretty good. How you been doing? You been all right?
I've been pretty good. You've been carrying me on the Valorant grind
Yeah.
recently, right?
So a new season of Valorant came out, a new act or whatever they call it, and a new character came out, Neon, and I've been playing a ton of that. It's been super duper fun. I've been really enjoying playing her, and I've gotten pretty used to her. So it's like it might be a main, you know, new season,
Dude,
new grind, new start, right? Just playing a lot of that, playing a lot of AOE.
I'm noticing something.
Oh yeah.
You're a jet player and a
No.
neon player,
Oh
bro.
no.
Like
Oh
you gotta
no.
go fast. You can't.
Bro,
You just gotta be
when we
everywhere.
asked that question in like episode 0 or whatever, like what kind of person you are, like personality wise, and I said I like to go in first, I was not lying. So yeah,
That's
like,
very true.
You gotta go fast. Like, you know, you can't be like all boring and shit. Like I got things to do, man. I gotta go
Yeah,
places.
yeah.
So a
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong.
new patch came out in Age of Empires 4, so I'm really enjoying that too. Playing a lot of that. Some fixes
Okay.
to the game, making things more viable. Some of the civilizations like more playable. So I've been enjoying it. It's been a good time. So that's what I've been doing. Playing a lot of games. You know, just working, hanging out.
Yeah, catch him on Twitch at Doublelift.
Oh
He's
my
a
God, he's
Holy
shouting me out.
Roman Empire player and a Frenchie, right?
That's me.
Yeah.
What about
And
you?
we're gonna before we get to that, we're gonna
Yeah.
show y'all some Adu highlights. So be
No.
ready for these highlights in the future.
No. We don't need to do that.
Personally, this past weekend, I just went on a snowboarding trip, and one of our friends made this super dope video of all of our pictures and like videos
Your
combined.
escapades.
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, it was my first time snowboarding.
Ooh.
I stayed on the bunny slopes the whole time, to be honest. But I did self-teach myself for the most part
Do you
how
have a
to
bunch
do
of bruises to
everything.
prove it?
To be honest, I think football trained me well enough to like fall properly, and martial arts. If y'all do martial arts, that don't doubt that. That helps you a lot in how to fall.
Dude, so a lot of people don't know this, man, but like falling, falling correctly is like a really, really important skill in sports. Actually, like being able to like, you know, tuck and
Yeah.
roll or like make sure you don't like hurt yourself when you fall. Like you have to
It's
fall
like
the right way.
it's like keeping your momentum going so that
Yeah.
it disperses in an okay way. Like,
Yeah.
like parkour people, like you see them how they do all their stunts. Like that's how they don't get hurt when they do most of their
That's true.
I
Right?
don't
Like,
know, actions.
yeah, make sure like all your like force isn't just like driven into like one knee or some shit like that. But like on the slopes, like were you killing it? Were you like just carving it up, like just zigzagging falling leaf? Were you just falling leaf the whole time, or were
Nah,
you like
so
going double black diamonds on the first run?
bro, well, like I said, I stayed on the buddy slopes, but I refuse to just falling leaf the whole time. So
Let it be
I
known, Mike is
actually
not a coward.
I tried to make sure before I did anything to at least stay on the my main foot forward and turn that, and that way I wiped a lot. But I did get it down eventually, kind of, you know.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty proud of it. Like
I'm glad.
one time I actually made this like nice ass turn back into where I was supposed to be. Like I basically imagine like a
curved
car
out.
drifting into a parking spot, bro.
Oh.
And I did that, and in my head I was like,
Ladies and
I
gentlemen,
don't care what anybody says. It's amazing.
we do
One
not
of the most-
condone drifting in the parking lot or donuts or anything like that. That could be unsafe. There might be
true.
pedestrians. Don't do it. However,
Yeah.
if you're gonna drift in the parking lot, do it like Mike did on a
Oh,
snowboard.
whoa. Yes.
Anyway.
All right. But yeah. Also, I just started. It's a new semester of school. Taking abnormal psych
Dork.
and bro, it's kind of cool. It's an asynchronous class, so we had to. We went. A couple students met at our professor's office hours over Zoom, and we just kind of networked, kind of talked. Like there was a graphics
badass.
designer. I might hit him to help us
Oh.
with stuff. There
Oh,
was
that's what we need. Actually, we need one of those.
yeah. there's maybe a future PT or OT. So like maybe
Oh,
I
wow.
talk to him. You
Yeah,
know,
that'd
you
be
never
really cool.
know.
Yeah.
And yeah, we
Super.
also have a new video editor. So hopefully our production value will slowly get better and y'all
Through the
can
roof.
just hear us
Invest
be
now.
nerds.
Get in on the
Yes.
ground floor and be like, wait, listen to Adew and Mike on Full Tilt Esports podcast. Like in the first 2 episodes, I was there from the start.
It's true.
Yeah, get in
And
on the ground level.
you could be the person like the famous YouTubers like Thorin or like Shroud always mention, bro. I always remember you. I remember you from the early days, etc., etc. Dude, you're a special guy, you know, or girl.
We love
You
our
know.
2 viewers out there, our 1 viewer out there. Hi, Mom. Anyway, so today, let's move on to the topic at hand today, episode 2. We wanted to work on something that's pretty interesting to us, at least, and we wanted to have a discussion about this with everybody. Can you be too competitive? Can you be too competitive? And we wanted to call this the motor behind the drive, right? So what's going on here? How can we like talk about competition being too competitive, being not being competitive enough, right? Where do you get your motivation? Where do you get your drive from? How does that matter in a psychological context? And sort of like how that matters when we're talking about esports, when we're talking about sports and competition, right? So we wanted to like, sort of talk about like one of the things that we wanted to lay out was highlighting that fine line of being respectful and competitive, right? Like being a good sport, right? Like sportsmanship is something that can come up and can matter. But also being wary of where during your competition, if you're being too overly competitive, like crossing boundaries, like you can hurt people either physically or mentally, right? Like in traditional sports, we might be talking more about the physical side of things where like you could be doing some dirty hits or something,
Yeah,
or
not
like
cool.
taking people out or undercutting people, something like this.
Definitely not
in
cool.
gaming, yeah, that's super not cool. But in gaming, you know, there might not be that physical aspect of that, but maybe sort of like the psychological aspect, maybe like trying to harm somebody or scar them, or like just be like rude to them or something like that, being toxic, right? Like people can say some like really mean stuff, right?
Yes.
Like, and I'm sure everybody knows examples of what I'm talking about. You know, like when people go out there, like I hope you die, or those kind of things. They can be like really rude out there, right?
Yeah.
Twitter
Way too
fingers,
far.
right? Mean people. And so like we wanted to come up with a few examples of people that may or may not have been like super competitive. Like examples of like people in traditional sports that have been really competitive.
Really competitive.
Really competitive. Like we struggle maybe to call them maybe psychopaths necessarily, but they are
Possibly.
like you know, borderline psychopaths, right? Where you know, the names that come up a lot of the time might be say like Michael Jordan, right, or Kobe Bryant or Muhammad Ali. I think Tiger Woods like broke a couple of the lists when I was googling it and looking it up, right? So there's an example that we wanted to see, like we were thinking about when that happened. Here's a video where we were talking about Chris Paul when he bet Michael Jordan. There was a time where he bet Michael Jordan against like his whole camp of kids that was at a basketball camp. If
A
they
Jordan
missed,
basketball camp.
yeah, if they missed, if Michael Jordan missed 3 shots or any of 3 shots, then the whole camp of kids would get Jordan shoes, right? And Michael Jordan was just like, fuck them kids, right? And he just went out there and he just did not care. He hit all the shots anyway, right? He was like, I mean, you could have done something nice and you could have given these kids some shoes if you missed on purpose. But he was like having none of that, right? And you know, he's competitive at his core, and you know, there's rumors that he's kind of on the cheap side, right? He's a little bit of a cheapskate, but either way, this man decided, fuck them kids. I'm not giving these kids these shoes right now. He's all competitive, right? It's part of his pride. He would never be caught missing free throws on purpose ever, even if it is for kind of a good reason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I half respect him for like staying true to himself there, you know, right? But then also it's just like, who knows, man? You could have done something for your brand, I guess.
I guess, right? Like, but
Yeah.
you don't want to be giving away shoes all the time, I guess. So I can see it both ways.
Yeah.
Other people that like we were talking about, for example, very recently, We were talking about John Morant. We saw like a video of John Morant
That boy
here.
balling.
That boy is balling recently, man. He could be like low key MVP vote. But so there was a kid in the stands when they were playing Golden State that had a Steph jersey on, and so the quote later was he like so he went into the stands after a foul, and then the kid was looking for a high five, and John Morant didn't give it to him, right? And so this is what John had to say. He was like he was disrespectful with that jersey on. We in Memphis, right? Like they were in Memphis, right? And he was like, it looked like he wanted to cheer, but he had that jersey on. So I apologized to him later, but in that moment, bro, take that jersey off, the Steph jersey, and then dap me up, right? So it would be kind of weird for John Morant to give like a high five to somebody with the opponent's jersey on, right? And he was being super competitive, and he just basically ignored a kid and like kind of almost stared him down, and then like sort of walked away, right? So there was like times when so sometimes an athlete or somebody might be in like savage mode, right? They're in like full competition mode, and they're like they kind of get caught up in it, and like even like the kids, in terms of Michael Jordan and in terms of John Morant, even the kids aren't safe, right? So there's like
to be fair though, maybe during that stare down, at least John Morant didn't like say anything. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe he controlled himself the whole time.
Yeah, maybe he was like holding himself back, like he didn't like he wasn't like too rude, but like later he was like I'm gonna get that kid a jersey of a Memphis jersey of his choice, right? So like he made up for it later, but at the same time it's kind of like in the moment you can be kind of like really intense, right, during competition.
For sure.
And so like on Bleacher Report I just like looked up a list of like people that were considered competitive in their days, right? Like Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, Pat Tillman, Bill Russell, the top 5, Jack Lambert, John McEnroe, Maurice Richard, Jackie Robinson. There's all like Larry Bird. These are all like traditional sports people that are considered to be ultra competitive during their time playing their game, whichever sport they were a part of. Right. So these are just examples that we wanted to sort of bring out, like when you could be overly competitive, when you're being competitive, things like that. Right. So that's like kind of the stuff that we wanted to discuss today is like where that sort of comes from and whether we can control ourselves and what to do about it. Right. So, yeah, I don't know.
We wanted to maybe give y'all like now either something personal or like some more famous people. We've already told you some of the famous people. So
yeah, right. So like examples of people that we know, like everybody knows, right? But
yeah, but at least to make this more personal, so y'all can get to know us a little bit, or at least on my side of things right now. I like I've told y'all, I played a lot of sports when I was younger, at an early age. So early age sports environments can kind of change how an individual thinks.
Yeah, it's formative, right? Like in your younger years.
Right. So it's like when you're always, I guess you could say, competing for a job, like to be the starter, to make the team.
Right.
Whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trying to make the cut, and everything almost becomes a competition. And maybe it also can kind of be compared to businesses, right?
Okay.
Where some people, when they join certain companies, they can be very cutthroat.
Yeah.
And it's just like me, right? And they can, it's inherently selfish. They also do produce some really talented individuals at times.
Yeah,
right?
That's fair.
But your retention rate of those individuals, or like people, like what if you had like a lot of good talent and like because of the cutthroatness, like it may have derailed a couple of those talents. But like, at the really big companies, they don't care because they're going to keep getting more people, because everybody wants to work for them.
I get it, right? Like almost like a Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing, like where like one side is like, yes, competition breeds like cream of the crop, right? Like you rise to the top if you're if you're meant to be, like in terms of competition, that's a reason for competition, right? Also, like to get who deserves it should get it, right? But at the same time, right? Like being
there's limited resources.
Yeah, right. There's limited resources, right?
Limited money,
whatever it is.
And then, like we said, they're like, because of cutthroat, you do get those really talented individuals eventually. Mm-hmm. But so we call it the alpha individual is eventually created.
Yeah, right. Rising to the top.
But yeah, and like for pro sport athletes or like esports pros in general, compared to the past, are much better now, to be honest, mental health wise at least. There's like plenty of clips of like the older era basketball players, football players who say people are soft now, right?
Yeah.
Or they weren't friends on the court, blah 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 blah, right?
That's true, yeah.
But
That happens
you know,
all the time
like
when they say that.
now, yeah,
This
nowadays,
generation is so soft. This generation is so soft. Like back in the day, they're all like saying like, oh, old school was like, oh, we hit them hard, or like hard fouls only, or like, you know,
Right.
like, just like no mercy kind of thing, or like, you know, sometimes you hear about like defensive specialists on like football, like intentionally trying to hurt other people, like bounty gate or whatever, like, you know, like those things.
That's some rough stuff.
Yeah,
like
right,
personally,
so the old school mentality.
at least, yeah, I think I mentioned it too. Like when I played football in high school, like I was told like the other team, they aren't your friends. Don't help them up. Don't do anything like
Even
that.
if you know them personally or something, like on the field, they're not your friends, right? Like that's like kind of like what they're saying.
Yeah, and like I mean, it at times it can help, but I think like it was flawed
for sure
in a sense.
For sure, I think.
But that's just a personal thought.
I think so as well. But
we've also seen like a couple of athletes that did take breaks for their mental health, and we're pretty proud of it. Adew has told me, or I also see on the news, you know, Naomi Osaka. I'm believing I'm not butchering her name.
Naomi Osaka, right? Naomi Osaka, the tennis player, the professional female tennis player.
And Simone Biles.
Simone Biles, like most recently, I think during the Olympics, right?
Right.
Where they decided for their mental health, like they either go through depression, I think in the case of Naomi Osaka, or Simone Biles was famously, and by the way, I think Simone Biles is from Houston. Is she from Sugarland?
Oh, yeah. She was a Kempner, bro.
Oh, so she's from H-Town. Shout out H-Town, and pretty local.
H-Town, hold it down.
Yeah, and so Simone Biles, you know, she sat out of the Olympics because she had like a series of like difficulties like mentally, right? Like they call it the twisties or whatever in gymnastics. So she decided to sit out for her health and safety, as well as like letting other people shine on the team too. Even though she's like probably one of the best, if not the best ever gymnast, right? She knew herself and she knew her own limits, right? So when that comes about, even if there's like supreme competition at the highest level, right? Even like the best in the game, she
took care of herself.
People are taking care of themselves now, right? And I think
I love that.
Yeah, and like, you know, people will say what they say, but like it's up to them. It's their decision. You can't make them do something, right? If they don't want to do it, and if it's like not healthy for them, if they don't feel like it's healthy for them, right? So like that's just something like we wanted to come up with and talk about as a like a really nice example of, you know, one of things like that going on right now. So what do you think about competition, Mike?
I mean, in some articles that we've read and looked at, they've said competitiveness isn't inherently good or bad. Which at first I was like, I didn't agree because recently, as I've said, right, something like be too competitive. So I thought it was bad, right?
Like being competitive is bad, like. But I guess you're viewing it from the stance of like being too competitive, right?
Right. But after reading the article and delving deeper, right, I could understand like competitive isn't good or bad because it can be good if you use properly, like most things, right? It can help you reach higher heights or just like fix up things, work on yourself, etc. But it can be bad also in the way that I mentioned, where like if you're too competitive, right, you could end up hurting friends or hurting others, etc. Like, you know, we mentioned the toxic people, right? Like,
or even hurting
you
yourself,
never want
right?
that, or like because like, you know, honestly, like if you hurt someone else, like it's kind of like you're hurting yourself too.
That's true. Yeah. Well,
and now I wanted to ask you though, where does that competition come from?
So we kind of wanted to bring this back a little bit to sort of a psychological standpoint, right? And again, we are mostly an esports podcast, right? So
yes, for sure.
So our goal here would be to talk a little bit about the psychology behind it, or at least some of the origins of this, right? So one of the first people to describe like motivation. And that's where I think competition comes from, like motivation, like what inspires you to compete, right? could come from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So something that we right now I brought up, or like you can go look it up yourself, is this hierarchy of needs that Maslow did describe. At the very bottom, so it's like a pyramid, right? At the very bottom of this triangle is your physiological needs, right? And then like slightly above that, right on the level above that is safety. The level above that is love and belonging. The second highest level is esteem, and the final highest level is self-actualization, right? So in this pyramid, we talk about like deficiency needs and growth needs, right? Basically, it's kind of like, and you don't have to always satisfy each need completely before moving on, but humans have this general need, right? On the very, very basic lowest level is physiological need. This is like ooga booga stuff, right? Right? Like actually, we're talking about like food, shelter, water, mates, right? This kind of thing. Where we're talking about on this very, very lowest level, being able to survive, right? Like, listen, Mike, I don't know about you, but if we see like this, like really, 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 really pretty girl, right? I'm gonna box you over it, right? Like I'm gonna fight you over this shit, right? I'm sorry, man. Like that's just how it's gonna be, man. It's competition, like.
That's fair.
You gotta stand out, okay? But like that could be something like on the lowest level, right? Like the physiological level. On the next level up, we had safety, right? Like this is security, right? But it can be predictability, right? Safety, security, predictability. This could even go as far as like emotional security or financial security, right? Being in a place where you don't feel like, I guess, threatened, right? Social stability is another like thing that could belong in this category. On the next level up, on the third level, you have love and belonging. As human social creatures, we yearn for connections, belongingness, intimacy, trust, right? These are like part of our needs. Like this is our like the third level. On the fourth level,
box me.
yeah, like like I'm sorry, man. Look, I'm willing to give up that feeling of belonging with you in order to like box you over this physiological need. All right, and
That's
then
fair.
on the next level, on the fourth level, we have esteem. Right on this level, we're talking about things like self-worth and self-respect when we're talking about ourselves, right, as self-esteem, or outward esteem, the projected esteem that we can gain in terms of other people respecting you, or like reputation, right? And on the final highest level, and this is what Maslow thought was like the like peak, like self-actualization. That's what it is. Achieving
peak.
your full potential, your best you be you, man. And in terms of competition, like just on a competitive thing, like being the very best you can be, being the most expressive you can be in like art or whatever, or like being able to be creative, things like that, right? So we have ourselves like this Maslow's like pyramid of needs, hierarchy of needs, and most of the time we start at the lowest levels, and then like we move up, like you need to satisfy the lower levels before moving on, mostly. But yeah, so that it kind of makes sense, and that's why I thought like I wanted to bring this up, because it's like it's motivation, right? And that's where we get our motivation to compete, right? So
True.
why
Very
we
true.
might like butt heads, because some people might be fighting each other for the same things, for their to
Same
satisfy
resources.
their own certain self interest or their own self needs, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
And I think to tie it into like esports or competition in general, as far as like the physiological part or the first tier, gaming isn't here, but some people may feel that way, right?
Yeah.
But you will live even after a loss in a video game,
so
right?
when we're talking about like physiological things, it's like literal survival, right? So hopefully nobody's holding it like a gun to your head when you're gaming. It's like if you lose this game, they're like, you lose this league game or Dota game, they're not gonna like shoot you, right? Like that's not happening. Hopefully that's not happening, right? You'll live even if you lose, right? So we're not really talking about the physiological level necessarily when we're talking about gaming, but maybe on different levels. Mike, what do you think about like safety?
Yeah,
security?
for safety though, if you're like a pro gamer,
Like a professional,
then
right?
yeah, you are literally fighting for resources and your way of life. To be honest,
I agree, right? So isn't that true, right?
Yeah, I agree. Like, for example, some of these guys, right? If they make it, not all of them are the superstar, right? So they could be a role player at first, and to continue playing this game, they gotta be good enough to earn money playing this video game, right?
Right, yeah. And there's only a
And
certain number of roster spots on the A team or whatever, or like you gotta make it on, like, if there's a 5-man roster for Team Liquid or something,
right,
how are you gonna get on if you're not gonna be competitive? Like, you gotta like fight for that spot, right?
for sure.
That makes sense. Like, if you're like a literal professional gamer, right? Like, it's actually a security thing, or like a financial security, or like a spot that you need to be in, right? That makes sense.
Yeah. So also though, it kind of goes along with that, but the next tier, love and belonging, like with those team members, if you can feel you are safe, you know, maybe you are the star player or like an up and coming player, so you know you got some safety, right?
Yeah. Once you establish yourself or whatever, right?
Right. But now you're with your organization or your teammates, right? You want that camaraderie, that synergy, right? With your
Yeah.
teammates,
Team
or
Chem.
like be a part of like a Discord community,
Yeah.
et cetera, right? And as gamers or competitors, it feels really nice to be a part of something in general, right? But
Yeah.
also to be a part of something special is even more amazing, right? Like, or you think it could be something special.
Yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, so it could be like super fulfilling, right? To join a group, like, even like, we're not necessarily talking about professional gaming at this point, but like if you're playing even casually or whatever, being a part of like a Discord channel or like a Discord group, or like being in some like streamers chat or something, or like getting that feeling of belonging. That's kind of where that comes in, like that love and belonging, like camaraderie. That, like, somebody having like similar likes and dislikes or whatever, or tastes, some kind of common hobby or something like that. Gaming that we're talking about is going to be like more fit to belonging, right? Like, and that's satisfying that need, right?
And just belonging, and just like being able to share, talk with people of like minds, etc. So yeah, like if anything, join one of our socials and then we'll talk with you, or leave a comment, you know, shameless plug here. But
That's us.
to go on to the next level though, Esteem, uh Esteem, as Adew mentioned, is self-worth and self-respect, right? And reputation. Oh, that was the inward part, and then the outward part is reputation and respect.
Yeah, fair, right?
A good example, in my opinion, was the League of Legends player, or pro League of Legends player, Doublelift. Right, he was like NA's hope, right? As at the AD carry position. For those of you, it's like the, I don't know, like the star point guard or the quarterback, kind of back then, right? And he kept grinding and trying to be the best to his abilities, I guess.
His personal,
Yeah, his personal
Pushing his
abilities.
limits, right?
But he was balancing that fine line of like his own self-worth and his reputation.
Yeah.
To the best of his abilities. But he ended up on the losing side. And he's still doing fine though. And it wasn't the end of the world for him, even though he ended up on the losing side.
Yeah.
And to continue with Doublelift as the example, the next tier, or the last tier, the top tier, self-actualization, Doublelift, what he was trying to reach for his peak was be the pride of NA, be the pride of the world in a sense, and reach his maximum potential.
Yeah,
right?
prove to others that he could be at the top, and prove to himself too, right? Like that he is like the best, right? You know.
And to be honest, like I said, he may not have reached the best or like won it all at the world level, but he definitely reached a pretty high point. He tried to he might have hit his peak already as far as the pro sports, but in life, he's still going on. He's living a good life, I believe. You know, he has a great girlfriend, I hope. And like he's doing well with his stream. He's, I don't know. He's doing well with his money. Hopefully, he's investing in whatever. You know, just taking care of himself.
So he's in a good spot, right? Like basically, like even if he hasn't necessarily achieved his goals change, right? Life changes, right?
For sure.
So that's kind of like what I was trying to say too. Is like when we get into these competitions, especially in terms of gaming, it's not necessarily the end of the world. You have to find a life after that, right? Like there is a game. You finish that game, or like there are like multiple games over the course of your life, but like it's like that's not the end of it, right? So like you gotta like see that and like move past that too, where you know like it's your goals, whatever they may be, need to be like updated over time for yourself, right? Like if like say like you're like oh like a lot of people in professional sports, they reach a certain point where they say they just don't have it anymore, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever, and then they say they want to retire, they want to do something else, they have a different goal in mind, they want to move on to be a coach, they want to teach other people, whatever their other goal may be. Like you still have to find that motivation afterwards, even past whatever it was your original goal that like really just like was you tried to live and breathe it right on that
Hmm.
physiological level almost on Maslow's needs, right? But you got to
For
move on
sure.
sometimes after your time.
Yeah. And now I wanted to like kind of bring up a new topic, which was being like overly competitive.
Okay.
And it's something, as I've mentioned, I struggled with. But hyper competitive individuals, right? Those overly competitive people.
Mike don't quit, man. This guy is like a competitive beast. He's a maniac.
Yeah, in some ways it can be good. In some ways, I'm working on it though.
Okay, okay, okay.
But those who have a need to win at all costs, right? Those hyper competitive individuals
Yeah.
tend to be more impatient, irritable, more irritable than their less competitive counterparts.
And this was
And
on a study, right?
yeah, and because of that, they tend to have during the study they tended to have higher self-reported health
Oh,
problems,
okay.
including heart disease. So
Oh yeah, heart
I don't know.
disease.
It didn't. It just says heart disease, but maybe it's like heart attack or whatever. And after I read this, I'm just let's all of us let's take care of ourselves, right? We're trying to live life, enjoy life too, right? We just take a step back, I'm
Yeah, I
not trying to
mean,
die too early.
oh, dude, yeah, man. Like, I mean, because that's fair too, right? Like, I mean, if you're gonna be in a competition, what's gonna happen? Your blood pressure is gonna rise. You're gonna get all heated, or you're gonna be like in the moment all the time. If you're really competitive all the time, if you don't have an off button, then right, like it's chronic, right? So like you might end
Right.
up having chronic heart conditions, like just high blood pressure, or like just a heart, maybe risk of heart attack, things like
Yeah.
that over time. I don't know. Who knows? So
Doctor, dude. I mean, when you're
you just
seeing
gotta be
patients,
careful.
whatnot, do they ever? Are there
Well,
any
people that are
that
high
you see?
strung, yeah, like if you're just high strung, have a lot of anxiety, like they're like, why is my blood pressure so high? It's like, well, maybe because you can't calm down, right? Like you can't like, in this case, if you're like overly competitive, you can't fight that like urge or whatever. So,
Right.
like I don't know, people that are high strung or intense are just naturally prone to these kind of things, right? So you gotta
So
be careful.
like, I'll say, hey, everyone, let's just try to relax more often, And personally, what helped me in that was like doing yoga and working on like mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
But I still have my outlets for competition. I'm not gonna lie. Hey, as us as competitors, like we still need to like I don't that quote unquote fix.
Yeah,
We need
like that fix
to.
that outlet, like that, that like urge, that drive, right? Well, anyway, namaste to you, Mike. Namaste to you.
Yes, thank you. My outlets were volleyball and Valorant, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
I mean, as long as you maintain a balance of it, everything, right? You got your competitive side, but
Hmm.
also the side time where you can relax, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And if you get both, you probably live a little bit longer, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, like, make sure that your activities that are supposed to be de-stressing actually do that, right? Like, because like, if you're playing video games that are stressing you out in your free time, then maybe that's actually counterproductive.
Yeah,
So
probably.
you're not de-stressing, you're re-stressing. So yeah.
So yeah, another part of that overly competitiveness is like we mentioned that it can be very similar to business, right?
Okay, yeah, I
When
agree.
people try to like, first I'll explain the research at the psychological standpoint,
Hmm.
which is when people try to manage their impressions uh to of others, or sorry,
Like in the
try to manage the
workplace.
impressions, yeah, in the workplace,
Okay.
or it could be like even outside of the workplace,
Hmm.
but managing the impressions of others the others have of them, right?
Hmm.
They tend to create a cascade of unintended negative consequences for
Okay.
both themselves and others.
Okay.
Yeah. And in contrast, when people try to contribute to the well being of other people, like, do good things for people, support them,
Golden
they
rule.
Yeah, they create a cascade of positive consequences for both themselves and others,
Okay.
right? And to kind of bring us back to episode one, as we discussed, when someone rationalizes or lies to protect themselves, right? Like in Valorant, let's say someone obscures the true reason for the negative result, right?
Okay. Yeah. Like they're not
It
facing
make
the truth or whatever.
Yeah, it makes it much more difficult to discuss how to work together to fix the issue,
Okay.
right?
Like they're just like burying that, like sweeping it under the rug, right? Like they're just
Yeah,
like not talking about the right thing or whatever.
right. And then like later on, it's just like you ended up just wasting time, to be honest, because you didn't know what the actual problem was.
Yeah, because you didn't address the real problem, the real source of the
Yeah,
problem. Okay.
yeah. So maybe you went on to something and it was just like part was perfectly fine, right? Let's say like someone was like you're a mechanic or something, and the person told you to work on this, but that part was perfectly fine, and you're supposed to work on something else, I guess, and you just ended up wasting time, right? No, no, you know, our time, everyone's time is valuable, right? Don't let your time be wasted too easily.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so also though, um, when you withhold information from people you work with, like this is the more business setting, right? So you can be the one who solves the problem. The person who made the study states that elicits competitiveness in other people, but in a bad way,
Okay.
and it's bad for learning,
Mm-hmm.
psychological well-being, and for growth. I mean, you can kind of put it together, right? If you're gonna lie about that problem, right, then or like try to like just help yourself, then everyone's gonna start doing that too, right? Because
Right.
they
Okay.
know that that's that type of environment, right?
Right. So
Where
again, like if somebody is being cutthroat and not helping somebody else along, then like everybody else is gonna in turn feel that way or do that thing, right? Like if you have like a I don't know, like a culture or like a work culture or something, and if you already have a reputation for being cutthroat, it could like be almost like contagious, right?
right, it's like the opposite of what we mentioned in episode one of like the constructive environment or the constructive criticism, etc. Like working
Destructive
together.
environment, right?
Yeah, it's a destructive environment. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And for those of you that don't know, like in TFT or Teamfight Tactics, they made this mode called Double Up, right? Or a team-based version of it on League of Legends.
I haven't played it yet, but yeah.
It was pretty good. I've been playing with a couple of people, and something that I learned is that inherently, when you are working with your partner by communicating with them, right, about what they need or what you need, it kind of creates a better vibe or a environment because now both of you are comfortable like saying like, oh, do you have this, like asking like, can you help me out here, do you have it, or like I need this, and then like when you can, you just adapt, right? But sometimes you never know, like maybe your partner will have a good solution to the situation, but you would never know if you didn't say anything, right?
Right. So you get like two minds on the case, right?
Right, exactly. And you create a better culture of chemistry between your partner, and that leads to that healthier, supportive environment we mentioned.
So are you the
And
left brain lobe or are you the right brain lobe in your duo relationship?
this is questionable. I'm probably both sometimes.
He's the whole brain.
It's like,
oh my god.
no. It's,
big
which
brain,
which
galaxy
day is
brain
it?
Mike.
It's, no. It's which day is it?
Honestly,
I
you
could
sound
be
like a
left
marriage
or right.
counselor right now. You sound like a marriage counselor right now. Communication is key, guys. Like yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Hey man, it just be like that sometimes.
Okay, well,
But like, once you create that healthy, supportive environment, right, that usually leads to more wins. And I definitely believe this because no matter what, in general, after like you have that supportive environment, both individuals can focus on learning, and
so
the
get,
wins
like, the good
will,
results, right?
yeah, because like once you learn, like you're better at adapting to each situation, right?
Okay.
And like no matter what anybody says to me, like if you have all these things in place, the wins will come with time.
Right. Yeah. So I guess that's kind of what you're saying is like if you have the right process, if you have the right thing in place, if you have like the support to make this work, the results will come. Like it'll line like even if there's like some variance in the way, eventually it'll all turn out like how it's supposed to because you've done what you're supposed to, right? Like basically you've laid the
Yeah,
groundwork for it. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
for
Right?
sure.
Yeah, and like so on my side of so I thought I personally find that competition and motivation and attention are pretty difficult to maintain, right? Like it can be very taxing, right? Like it costs you a lot of effort, it costs a lot of attention in order to be motivated, to be competitive the whole time, right? So
Yeah,
so on the inverse side of like being overly competitive, being like maybe not being able to be competitive all the time or when you need to be, right? So
yeah. So
maintaining
that's like,
a competitive attitude over long periods, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a day or whatever or a week or whatever, just over like long periods, even like a lifetime, right? So I don't know, right? So
but
yeah,
also like peaking, I guess, like with that, because if you think of like a NBA season, a NFL season, or
yeah, I guess there's
like
seasons, right? Like
like
yeah,
League of Legends, right?
sure,
Like
yeah,
there's time periods where you're doing it, right? And like you also need to like peak at the right time, kind of, because like
yeah,
sometimes like you don't want to peak during the middle of the season, right? Because that's not where the playoffs or the finals, whatever
right. You
it may
just
be, like World Championship, whatever, right?
worlds.
And I mean, like in all sports, I feel like different players sometimes have mentioned this, that they want to peak at the end,
At the right
right?
time, exact right
So
time. Yeah.
like sometimes their stats or like whatever take a dip at a certain point, right? But that's because like, are they like relaxing or are they chilling, like we said, right? You
Load
know?
management, load
Yeah,
management.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Playoff
I mean,
LeBron, playoff LeBron.
hey man, it just be like that. Like people need to take care of themselves, right? When you take care of yourself to a degree, and but be ready for the time where it's most important. Who's going to say anything about that, right? Like,
Yeah.
and even if it is that most important time, you should still take care of yourself, like Simone Biles, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess that's right, right? Like if you have trouble like maintaining motivation or whatever, that's kind of normal, right? But like being able to like find that juice whenever you need it, right? And then like another thing that I was thinking about when we were talking about competition is managing expectations, right? So like this could be like an issue that like pops up. Whenever you're going into a competition, ask yourself like, what do you want out of this, right? Like what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? Right? To maintain like a healthy mental state, you really need to be sort of keeping that goal in mind. Like, am I still, well, first of all, am I doing this for fun? Is this like what I'm gonna, like, I need this for my life or whatever? So like, whether or not you can manage those expectations, you can sort of develop what you want and need out of this competition, right? So like make sure that you manage those and say like, do I really need to be like literal the world best at this? And how far am I willing to go, right?
True.
Yeah.
I mean, like before every game, I feel, or like if you're, whether it be traditional sports or like Valorant or whatever esport you're playing, right? Before every game, maybe realize what situation you were in and then change your expectations accordingly, right? Like whether who you're playing with, like with what Adew said, like, am I trying, are these the people that I know I can try to reach my full potential, or am I just like going to mess around, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Like you can, it'll lead you to enjoy whatever you're doing uh, in a better way. Because if it's like with casual people, you'll be more chill, right? If you manage those expectations.
Yeah, and so like when we're talking about expectations, I was thinking like if you're too low on that spectrum or whatever, like if you're not competitive enough, then you can come across as being like lackadaisical or like uncaring or like it doesn't like
True.
it feels like you're not there for the right reason or something like that. Like why are you here, right? Because like we're really trying to win here. While on the other end, when you being too competitive, you can come across as being like brash or like just being rude or something, or being like a bad sport or something. So like like coming across and doing that correctly is really important. Which brings me to my kind of like last point that I wanted to bring up is when you're in like a group environment. And there's a level of competition that causes that strain on your relationships. Mismanagement of personalities and maybe differences in those expectations can lead to they can lead to alienation or isolation or you could end up losing friends because of it, right? Like these psychopath athletes, some of these psychopath esports players, right? They kind of don't care how they come across, right? Sometimes that can happen, and if you aren't managing your expectations well enough, you're not managing personalities between people well enough, if you don't really understand what is motivating another person or even yourself, you can come to a point where like you're not coming across as diplomatic or nice, or like people can hate you, or you might not be able, or you can lose your friends, right? That could be a result of being too competitive, right?
True.
Yeah. So,
Like, just with that, do you think, I wanted you to expand a little
Sure.
bit, if people are too diplomatic, right, and not assertive enough, I guess, would that be because, like, okay, let's say that person that
could be a problem, yeah.
you didn't isolate or whatever, right, but you never managed that person out, that person's personality, because
Yeah.
they can kind of now have control of things.
That's fair. Like if you didn't if you felt like the direction of the group wasn't moving in a correct way, right? Like maybe you were too hands off about it, right? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, you're right, and I think that's something that we talked about a little bit too in episode 1, and go check that out if you haven't. With constructive criticism, right? Where like you can bring it up, right? Like having that like tell the truth Mondays or whatever, like, or being in a locker room
Yeah.
environment where like you can safely bring up to the group that there's something that needs to be changed, right? Like changing your behavior so that things will move in the right direction.
For sure.
Yeah.
And now, I think we've gone on topics of like overly competitiveness and like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I guess, right?
Yeah. Right.
So now let's try to think of like, I guess, the solution
Yeah. Exactly.
to being
Yeah.
like too competitive or like not competitive enough, etc.
Yeah, so we've introduced that
Um,
problem, right? Like we're talking about competitiveness, too competitive, overly competitive, or not competitive enough. We've talked about where that motivation comes from, that like is required for competition, right? And we've also talked about sort of like expectations, managing expectations, and what to do about it, right? So now we're moving on to like what we think could be ways to counter that or confront that, right?
for sure.
So in terms uh, of knowing where to like draw the line, right? Like there is that managing those expectations, right? Reeling yourself in and really like looking at yourself and looking at like how far do we really want to push this, right? Do we need to be number one here, or can we just be like top 1%, top 5%, top 10%? Are we just doing this casually? What's our goal? Are we trying to like have fun here, right? Yeah. So that could be one thing, right? Like where you take that and think about that a little bit harder, right?
How often?
Consciously do it.
Yeah. How often do you manage your expectations, Adew?
I again, I do have to do that consciously, right? I
Uh
feel like I'm being personally attacked right now. How dare you?
huh.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I like really though. You do need to do that, right? Like it's kind of like I don't know. It's like where do you want to be, or like do you think you're doing enough, right? Like, and if you are doing enough, it's like, am I okay with where I am right now, right? Like, because like it can be okay to be like I'm good, right? Like I don't need to
Hmm.
do any better, or like if I lose, I'm okay with that, right? Like maybe I can just take that as learning experience, right? Something like
Hmm.
that, right? Yeah.
And I
I,
mean, I
yeah.
said it. I personally try to do this all the time now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still working on it, still trying to be better, you know?
Mm.
Hey, like I said, you make this normal. Even if you aren't the best at something, just keep working on it, right? You'll get better eventually.
Yeah. Normalize losing. Normalize losing.
Or being
Losers,
okay
all
with
you losers
losing.
out there. No, I'm
Being,
just
how
kidding.
about being okay with it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, those expectations have to come in. If you're in a competition, inherently, there are times you're going to lose, right? That'll happen.
Hmm.
And I
For
think
sure.
another thing that I was thinking about, like it could be a potential solution, is like it's valid to take breaks, right? Like take a breather,
Yeah.
like step back. Like maybe you're playing all day, and you like, this truly does come down to our title, full tilt, right? Because like if you're tilted, if you're not in the right place mentally or whatever,
True.
you're probably being detrimental to yourself, or you're not getting anywhere, or like you're not progressing because probably you're doing the wrong thing, or you're not like in the right space, right? So
Hmm.
sometimes coming back later is better for you, right? It's valid to take breaks. We were talking about, like, I don't know, Naomi Osaka walked away for a little
Yeah.
bit, right? So
Simone Biles.
yeah, so it's maybe that's all right, right?
Yeah.
What do you think
And
about that?
even during those reviews or those breaks, you can review and maybe identify what's making you more stressed or tense, right?
Yeah, okay.
And if you're able to alleviate that tension, I think both your mind, or this is just my thoughts, but
Mhm.
both maybe your mind and body start to move more naturally and intuitively. Like you're not so rigid, I guess. Like you're
Yeah.
just like, you're not thinking anymore. You just
Yeah, you're just
move.
like kind of free to do what you need to be doing. Like it's just like a sense of freedom to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's fair. And then finally, I thought, as in terms of the solution, maybe like if you're solo, or if you're by yourself, like like state your goal again, to be sure, like, hey, I want to do this today, or like set like little goals and then like toward a big goal, right? If you're in a team, talk about what you guys want as a group, right? I know, like, for us, like, Mike and myself, we played Counter Strike for a little bit, right? And we joined
Yeah.
like a little amateur team, right? In CEVO together with our team. Shout out to our CEVO team.
Shout out Jones Esports / Sun Esports
Ooh, yeah,
and our
yeah.
sponsors.
We were playing around, right? But honestly, it's like if you're in a group, you have to kind of ask yourself, well, not yourself, but like as a group, maybe even ask yourself as a group what you guys want to try to achieve. Like, what are you guys trying to do? Are you guys going to be able to like make practice times and like work together, and like are you gonna like learn these like team setups and things, or are you just gonna like just go in there and have fun? Like, this isn't something like that you guys want to take all that seriously about, or something, right? So that could be the case, as a group, right? If you wanted to try to make that work. And then finally, I think what we were talking about as another potential issue of competition could be like mismanagement of personalities, or that whole losing friendships thing, possibly, or like not being accountable in a group, right? Again, we would like to like refer you back to episode 1, where we talked about constructive criticism, and like team settings, and like the team dynamic, and management of personalities sometimes, in that conversation that we had earlier about that. But yeah, totally. Long story short, there are issues that could pop up in competition, and we just want to be super aware of those, right?
Yeah, for sure. And just talk it out, communicate properly, right? Communication, whether it be family members, teammates, work environment, etc., right? It's a beautiful thing if you have good communication. And like we said, like
Marriage counselor Mike. Marriage counselor Mike.
if you start with that first positive support, I guess it's going to keep making more positive consequences for both you and others, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
And yeah, so now we wanted to close, but before we close, just to let y'all know what we have in store. We have
Let me know.
we have a couple of interviews lined up. We have
Ooh,
an
hype.
interview with a college football player,
Oh, okay.
a pro baseball player,
Okay.
a Vegas poker tourney finalist,
What?
and an immortal Valorant player.
bet you
So we
he's
got
tilted.
a wide
We're all
array
tilted.
of people. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe all 4 of them are
We
tilted
are
to a
fully
degree, right?
tilted. Oh man, we're at like 90 degrees at this point, man. Listen to all these
Gosh.
people; they're tilted. When we introduce them, are you tilted? I'm tilted. Are you tilted?
I'm never tilted. Just kidding. I'm always
Yeah,
tilted.
we're always tilted. We're always tilted around here, right? Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, Adew, anything for you?
Not really. That's basically all I had for today. But we just wanted like say shout out to all our help in terms of producing our show. We're really into this, and I think you guys should be too. Hopefully, we'd
Please.
love to hear from you guys. We'd love to for you guys to spread the word about us if you're out there listening to us right now. Go ahead and check out all of our socials. We have ourselves our YouTube, our Twitch stream, our Facebook, our Twitter, our Reddit.
Reddit,
Go find us
yeah.
everywhere under Full Tilt Esports Psych. If you're looking at it right now, we have QR codes for those. Follow the links in the descriptions. Go ahead and, you know, just spread the word. Subscribe, like, follow, do all those things. Turn on those notifications, right?
Please.
Full shout out. You know, I would be like I would say this. If I had an opportunity to sell out, I would be the fastest sellout in the world, man. Listen, dude, like if you're gonna pay me money to shout you out to be part of your company, listen, I will take your money. I will take your dirty money. All right, your blood money. We're gonna like this stream, this Full Tilt Esports podcast. Man, we're gonna be super sponsored by everyone. We're gonna be like the Goodyear blimp, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude.
Yeah.
And as you can hear, Adew, he'll put it in a funny way, and he'll get you all the viewers. So just, you know, come to us, like, subscribe, donate, you know, whatever you may choose. And yeah, so now we're gonna leave y'all off with some music to kind of relax on, think about whatever. Peace.
Peace, man. How you doing, Mike? Are you tilted?
As always, I'm always tilted.